Hello everyone, this is Anurag Sharma and today we are joined by Mr. Deepak Chhabra, Managing Director, Timex Group India. Hi Deepak,
Hi Anurag.
welcome to ET Retail. So firstly, would like to understand about about the overall timekeeping industry and lifestyle and fashion industry. Like you have been in this industry from a long time now. So how have you seen the overall landscape evolving over the years?
So if you talk about watches, watches have undergone a huge transformation in the last 7 to 10 years. Previous they used to be timekeeping device. With the advent of mobiles, that purpose has been taken over by mobiles. So watches have become more of fashion accessory. So that's one major change which has happened. Secondly, of course, the smartwatches which have come during COVID time, that has expanded the market. So you have analog watches, you have smartwatches. And then of course, premiumization has hit everybody, whether it is cars or real estate or fashion. So we are seeing people spending much more money on watches. And on channel, if I have to talk, how are they shopping, how are they interacting with the brands? Previously, the watches used to be largely offline. People want to touch, feel, try, and then buy. But we have seen it is changing rapidly in the last 5, 6 years, wherein about 1/3 of the business in watches also coming from online. So these are larger trends which have changed. But if you ask me one single trend which has transformed the industry is it has moved from just timekeeping device to a fashion statement. So when it becomes a fashion, the ball game changes completely, because now you are not selling precision timing, because nobody wants precision, but now you are selling a statement, you are selling a style. And that has also led into ownership of multiple watches per person. So that's how it has evolved, and this is going to continue for the next decade or so.
Also, we have seen a lot of new age consumers buying luxury watches, normal watches, also affordable category watches. So, how have you seen the consumer behavior change over the years after COVID? Also, a lot of new age consumers buying through online channels, offline channels. So, what changes in their buying behavior that you have observed lately?
So India's demographic, if you see, it's a pyramid. Of course, a large set of people sit in the bottom of the pyramid, but there is a considerable, significant chunk of people who are at the top of the pyramid, and then everything in between. So the consumption of watches has actually grown in the whole pyramid. But if you say the percentage growth has come maximum in luxury watches. Yeah, and then there's a segment in between masstige watches and the luxury watch, which we called fashion segment. That's the second fastest growing segment. And the masstige anyway is growing because India is evolving. India is adding a lot of middle class people. There are a lot of people who are buying their first watch. So the bottom of the pyramid is driven by that. Fashion, which is middle of the pyramid, and the top, which is luxury, that is seeing huge growth because disposable income has increased. Watches have become fashion, and it's a branded category. So people are spending more money and they're buying more watches. On the channel, as I mentioned, when you go into the luxury side, still it is largely driven offline, because when you're spending say a lakh or more, you really want to go to a store, experience the journey, consumer journey, and also touch, feel, and see how it looks. If it's a fashion, you see how it looks on me. If it is functional, then you see how it functions. Since it's a fashion, the top of the pyramid, which is high-end luxury or high-end fashion, still is offline driven. But bottom of the pyramid is moving rapidly, online, including not restricted only to slow commerce, but even quick commerce. We see a huge surge in watch purchase. Yeah.
Great. So, like you just mentioned about the quick commerce part, we have seen a lot of FMCG players, fashion lifestyle accessories being sold. Even skincare segment is growing through quick commerce. So, in this specific segment that you are present in, how do you see the growth of the category through quick commerce?
Sure. One is, quick commerce as such, regardless of the industry, if you are delivering faster, everybody is happy. If I can get my watch in 3 days through slow commerce, and I can get my watch in 30 minutes through quick commerce, of course, I'm going to prefer. So quick commerce is really making huge strides, but quick commerce is very logistically challenging because to cover a city like Delhi, you need about 3,000 dark stores. So logistically it is challenging, but since there are big players in it who are well funded, this is expanding big. Just to share with you certain data, so even as on date, when the quick commerce is only about 6 months old, there are 50 lakh orders every day these guys are serving, amongst five of them: Zepto, Blinkit, Mintra Now, Swiggy Instamart, and Flipkart Minutes. And this is expanding rapidly, not in percentages, but it's multiplying because while they are serving more orders per dark store, but they are adding a lot of dark stores. So that's how quick commerce is moving. When it comes to our industry, if you ask me how the watches, the big change I should empathize on, I should emphasize on this, that watches have become gifting solution, preferred gifting solution. One, they are not size dependent, they're size agnostic. And watches generally, are used for both formal gifting as well as informal gifting. We don't have a backup of this data, but largely industry data talks about that 50% of the total watches sold in India are for gifting. So for example, before Timex, I had about 5, 6 watches. I didn't buy even one of them. All were gifted. And same thing, I bought a lot of watches, but I gifted them. If it's gifting, quick commerce becomes really relevant because you need the watch sooner. You realize you are going for a dinner in the evening and you don't have a gift. You can actually get a pair of watches for the host and get it delivered in 30 minutes. You have a birthday of your child, watches are a gift. So since it has become gifting, quick commerce is relevant. But even if it is not gifting, who wants to wait? If the price remains same, value equation is same, and you are delivering in 3 days and somebody else is delivering in 30 minutes, of course, I'll go and buy in 30 minutes and, just finish it off rather than plan it and get it delivered in 3 days. So I think quick commerce is putting a lot of pressure on slow commerce. Slow commerce has to really ramp up their logistic cycle. But I still feel, quick commerce potentially can take about 25% share of the total e-commerce. That's what I feel.
So if we talk about Timex Group, so what kind of growth that you have seen through quick commerce and through offline channels also? So is there any specific channel contributing to most of your business currently? And going ahead also, how do you see the growth of different channels? Because obviously the kind of category that you are present in is like a more touch and feel kind of category. So how do you see the growth of all channels in this category and for Timex Group also?
Sure. So I would say COVID was a game changing. So pre-COVID, watches were largely offline driven. So it was like 95% of the total watches sold in the country were bought by consumers from, retail touch points. Yeah. Post COVID, slowly, steadily, e-commerce started, becoming bigger. But as I said, when it is luxury segment, still it is like 90% offline. If it is fashion segment, it's 80% offline. If it is masstige, which is say less than 10,000 rupees retail price, that has moved by a huge chunk. And for us, 1/3 of our business in Timex as a brand comes from online. Yeah. So online is progressing very fast. Again, the promise of faster delivery, even, and you don't have to really go out and hunt, park your car, spend time, so and these are not size dependent. Yeah. And the way you list, AI enabled listing on the portal, so you get a feel of how the watch will look on your wrist, plus how big the dial is. You give parameters compared to other commonly used objects, is fueling this growth. I feel this e-commerce of 1/3 contribution would be there for the whole industry. Currently, we are leader. Industry works at about 20% online, 80% offline. We do about 35% online and balance offline. But when I emphasize on online, I should not forget that the place what offline plays. Offline is the biggest channel and will always remain. Although it is under pressure, which is making all us retailers work harder and smarter and give better service and quality of service to our consumers from our offline stores. But that's the biggest challenge and will always remain.
Sure. So currently, where do you mostly focus on? I mean, is it tier one cities more or tier two, tier three cities more? Because millennials and the new age Gen Z shoppers are everywhere. Sure. So, which demographic that you are targeting currently, and through which regions?
See, the fact remains that top 10 cities of India still contributes for a premium product 50% of business. And that's a fact, that's a hard fact. This 50% is not growing at the pace which the next 50 cities are growing, so which is tier 2, tier 3. So the growth in tier 2, tier 3 is huge. Yeah, from about say 20% contribution a decade back, they are doing about 50% contribution. But then you have to cover say about 200 cities to do that 50%, while you have to just focus on the top 10 cities to do the rest 50%. So it's an equal focus. The largest cities, the metro plus mini metros, and I can put it like 10 cities, will still be very big, and the focus remains there. But expansion is happening on tier 2, tier 3, as we call Bharat. While India is set, but we have to hold India in hand while we grow Bharat. So the focus is equal, but relatively, if you ask me, yeah, of course, the work being done in the tier 2, tier 3 is more, because everybody is looking at that market, including our competition. So we have to be ahead of the curve, and that is growing at a much faster pace. But I see that metros, mini metros continue holding that 45-50% ratio. So we need to ensure that while we are growing tier 2, tier 3, we don't lose tier 1. And there's one more thing, Anurag, I wanted to share. When it becomes premium products, I would say premium or luxury products, the consumption in the top 10 cities even become bigger. So say, for example, Versace, which is one of the most premium product we have in our brand portfolio. Versace, 80% business come from the top 10 cities. So it depends on your price point and then relevance to the consumer in tier 2, tier 3. Timex is moving big time in tier 2, tier 3. So, it also changes with the brand and the price point which we are addressing.
So, as you just mentioned about the competition part, so as we have seen a lot of D2C brands entering the market and a lot of global players investing in India. So, what are your plans to scale further or to reach more masses? And also, how do you position your brand currently to reach the masses also and to the elite consumers in India?
Sure. So, Anurag, as I said, we are, as Timex Group, we are not just Timex. Yeah, we are a bouquet of brands. We have 17 brands in our portfolio, starting from Versace on the top to Ferragamo, to Guess Collection, to Guess, Nautica, Adidas. A lot of brands. There's 17 of them, and then of course we have our own brand, which is Timex, and sub brands called Helix and TMX. So the strategy for each of the brand is very different. Yeah. So as I mentioned, India and Bharat behaves very differently. Timex, which is our flagship and the brand which is closest to our heart, it has been around for 170 years. It is relevant across. It's actually relevant across, whether tier 2, tier 3 or metro cities, because metro doesn't mean everybody is, HNI. Metro means it's a cosmopolitan, SEC, A, B, C, everybody is there. So Timex strategy is grow everywhere, yeah. Wherein the luxury brand strategy is focus more on the top 10 cities. Maybe in 3-4 years you take those focus from 10 to 15 cities, but you can't take it to 100. Yeah, that becomes difficult. But then what does it mean for the balance 80-85 cities? Are they not going to experience my luxury brands? Not at all. That is where my online comes. Setting up a store in a small town to cater to a very small set of people who can buy Versace will not be viable. But we are a responsible organization. We want each and every consumer, wherever they are, to experience our brands. And that is where we have made online very strong. So through, say, online, we cover about 24,000 pin codes. And I'm proud to share with you, Versace is sold in small towns like Ichalkaranji, or say in a small town town like Bareilly, although we may not have our store there, but consumers can interact and purchase our products and the brand through online, and we are seeing a huge surge online in tier 2, tier 3 for luxury and the premium watch segment, because the offline there is a bit weak, and as I said, commercially also it doesn't make sense to really open a store in a very small town where the number of consumers are less, but we are covering them through our online reach.
So like you cater to different set of consumers. So is there any kind of pricing strategy that you implement for different regions also? I mean, just to elaborate more on the pricing part.
The whole of India, pricing has to be same. For a particular product, pricing has to be same. So nobody has a leverage there because that's like mandatory requirement. Now the assortment is different, of course. So for example, South is more traditional, North is outrageous, if I say it. Very fashionable, high fashion. South is more on loyalty. If they pick up a brand, probably 2-3 generations are going to still consume that brand. North tries a new brand every year. Yeah, so we'll have to keep these consumer preferences and consumer behavior in mind when we offer our products. So a classic example I share, we have one of a very successful brand called Guess. So guess what assortment we sell in South is probably very, very different from what we sell in North. So price point wise, I don't see there is much of difference. Consumers across the country are spending more on watches, so it's not that South wants cheaper watches, North wants costly watches, but what kind of watches they need, that's the difference. So we do not segment our products or brands by different pricing or different price points in different regions of India. It's more on the product type, what kind of product they prefer more. It depends a lot of things, what do they like to wear in different regions. So we cater that basis our segmented assortment, but price point sensitivity is not there, or it is equal if I say. Of course, Indians are always value conscious. I won't say price conscious. They want value out of every buck they invest, and that's what we keep in mind by offering a very high value for any brand which we sell, any product which we offer. Yeah.
So do you focus more on the value growth or the volume growth?
So premiumization has really helped us getting higher value. Previously, we have seen on an average a CAGR in last 3 years of about 10-12%. So every year 10-12% average selling price is increasing. But that is only 10-12%. Our aspiration doesn't stop at 10-12%. Our aspiration is very high, and we have shown in the last 3 years the company has grown double of what it was, with 4 times of profits. That will not only come by selling only costlier watches and not selling more watches or higher market share. So it's a combination, if you ask me. Price point is a bit sensitive thing. We cannot ourselves command it. It's on the consumer. But we can always do efforts to sell more watches to more people. So it has been a combination for us. Going forward, if you ask me, the price point increase will continue. Premiumization is still continuing. Watch is more of branded category, people spending more money, but we want to have a higher market share. We want to sell more watches, and that should be the major driver. And then of course, the value which is becoming higher by premiumization will top it up for us as a growth for us. Yeah.
So one question about the global tariffs that we have seen that Trump has implemented. So is there any kind of impact that you see on the overall category and also on the business currently?
So it is still evolving, if you ask me. Every day you hear different things from the government of US. So it's still evolving. But if you ask me the impact, it is all positive. Now India is seen as a China plus one model. India is seen as a huge, for our category, for watches, India is seen as a huge vendor base. India is seen as a huge manufacturing base. So for India, whatever happens, once it's stabilized, the tariffs are settled, the final tariffs are out, the trade deals are done, India will be a winner, absolutely a winner, because a part of business will come to India, because the world has seen over dependency on China has not worked in their favor. So India actually provides an amazing environment, business environment at this point in time, and more efficient environment. Plus, for watches, lot of vendor bases here. If you see ancillaries, thanks to people like us and Titan, we have in the last 30 years we have grown the industry, and we have set up a lot of ancillaries and vendors who make almost all parts required to make a watch, except movement. Movement, which is the heart of the watch, that's generally Chinese. It's generally Japanese, and of course China also makes. Our dependency on movement is only which is outside India. Rest all complete supply chains are India. So, if I have to summarize, India is gonna see all positive things out of this tariff, discussion which are happening around. India will get a lion's share, and more share out of China and some other markets. And we are already seeing, Anurag, if you ask me what we are doing as a global organization, we are already have started procuring from India full watches. We have always been buying from India a lot of components. Yeah, so a sizable, about 3 million components every year we have been buying for our global organization. For our own consumption, we have a huge factory, a world-class factory in Baddi, which can actually manufacture anywhere between 3 million to 6 million watches. We have seen that the vendor base which is there has been strengthening itself, and our dependency on global supply chain has become like very limited. So if something happens globally on the global supply chain, India watch industry largely will be not affected, because we have our local supply chain. Vendor bases here, we have a huge factory, and we have a huge design house in our office in Noida.
Absolutely, I think well explained. So one last question on a personal front. I mean, how do you see watches personally? I mean, is it a style statement, or is it a symbol of discipline, or something entirely different?
So if you really ask me, I see my watch as a buddy. Yeah, this is my friend, and it's very personal. If you really ask me, it's something which I feel something is missing if I don't have my favorite watch on my wrist. So it's more personal. Of course, it defines my style. It defines what I like. It defines. I normally wear bracelet one, so these are pretty heavy. It defines the person I am. But more than that, it actually is my buddy. It's like my friend. I talk to my watch. Believe you me, I talk to my watch so many times, because now you don't watch time there, but it's like it's too personal. It becomes like part of you. I was telling someone which has never happened, but if it ever happens that I move out of my home without a watch, I'll go back, even if it means I have to go back 50 kilometers to pick my watch. So it's so important. It's so personal. It's like part of you, and that's what makes me very optimistic about huge growth in this industry. And maybe if I can share, how things have moved. One is, it has really become personal now, and it has become a lot of fashion after COVID. And thanks to smartwatches, which we also participate in, during COVID period when people were not moving out, but people were wearing smartwatches, the ownership of wrist remained. So जो आदत होती है ना, to have something on your wrist, it remained. There was a risk because COVID lasted for 1.5 to 2 years, and if you stop wearing watch, it becomes difficult to wear a watch because it looks heavy. So the smartwatches did that job when people were still wearing something on their wrist, and when the COVID settled down, that benefit has gone to analog watches. So a lot of good things have happened out of disaster called COVID. Yeah, but overall our industry has seen a lot of positives. After COVID, and the growth which we have seen is tremendous.
Wonderful. I think very well explained, and great insights from your end, Deepak. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for
Anurag.
connecting.
Thanks, Anurag. Pleasure to be here.